everyone. Sorry for being late. It's kind of been a little bit crazy around here as I'm trying to move my. Oh, for fuck's sake. What a way to open the show, huh? It has been a tech nightmare. You're going to have to look at my phone screen for a second because it's been one of those days. You know what? Just open with a comedy skit, and this is it, right? Okay, let's go ahead and officially start the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fireside Creators. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sherry Palace. I am relieved that we aren't tackling any tough topics tonight after this tech stuff. I couldn't even handle it. But the state of our union and its collapse is overwhelming and heartbreaking. So I am thankful that tonight's show, there will be lots of laughs. Tonight, I am chatting with Denise Winkelman, who went from a WWE wrestler to a trans stand-up comedian. Please remember to keep all comments and questions related to the show topic and that this is a safe space. I want to thank, let me see, who am I thanking? It's going to be one of those days. See my teleprompter? It's going to be one of those days. Uh, Thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to all of your comments and questions. If you're on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, grant StreamYard access so we can see your name when you have a comment or a question. Let's give a shout out to our top sponsors, Ruth, Kirsten, Michelle, Ray, and Heidi. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. If you would like to support me, and why wouldn't you with this fancy of a show, right? You can go to sherryballas.com and there you will find literally dozens of ways to do so for as little as $3 a month. Thank you in advance for helping me out and doing all that stuff. Next week, there is no show because next Tuesday I will be traveling to the Wild Goose. There is still time to go. The dates are July 15th. See here. Or I'm sorry, July 13th. July 11th through the 13th, and it's in Harmony, North Carolina. Try to go. We will be doing a show there on Friday at 4 p.m., and you will be able to watch the show in person. But if you can't go, we will still be streaming it live. On Friday, not on Tuesday. To get tickets, go to wildgoose.org and enter. I feel like I'm doing a stand-up comedy skit right now. Enter A-FS24 for $50 off your weekend ticket, your adult weekend ticket. I hope to see you there. Thanks for welcoming us into your home and joining the conversation. I appreciate you all. Okay, let's meet our guest, who hasn't arrived yet because she's having issues too. Let's meet Denise. Let's move that. Denise Winkelman is a comedian, former model, former wrestler, and award-winning writer. Her debut comedy special, Bougie on a Budget, will be released later this year. She is silly, sassy, and a complete hussy. And I really wish I could bring her on right now, but I can't because she's not here yet. So we're going to talk about, hello, Patrick. Yeah, Chrome wouldn't start for me in any way or shape or form. So I'm actually working on Firefox right now that doesn't work really well. Thank you. I got it cut. Let's move this so you guys don't have to see my teleprompter. I got it all cut off for the goose. I said 4 inches, closer to 6, but I'm not going to die, right? I'm not going to die next week in North Carolina out of pure heat stroke. And so it'll all be good. Also, I want to give, hi, David, how are you? This has never happened before. I haven't had a guest do this. So, but she thought it was at 6. There she is. She just beeped in. I'm going to give her a second to get her screen right. Are you ready, Denise? Denise is a friend of mine. She is also my neighbor, and I have been on to a couple of her shows, actually a few of them by now. And I was honored to be at the taping of her stand-up comedy special that is releasing later this year, called Bougie on a Budget. And I'm sure at some point you will be able to see the back of my head or me falling forward, cracking up hysterically. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. You ready? Hi, Denise. Oh, no, she can't hear me. Are you there? This is all part of the stand-up skit. I assure you all. I can't hear you. Nope.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
There we go. I can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. I am so sorry. Woo!
Okay, I am just signing on myself and trying to explain to everybody why everything is so crazy today. Hi, honey. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Can you hear me okay with the mic here? Or do
Yeah.
I need to? Okay.
Hey, audience, can you hear her okay? Let me turn off your echo. Ooh, wrong one. We normally do this in the background before the show, but everything was so crazy for me. I couldn't even get Chrome to load.
Oh my gosh.
It was nuts. So thank you so much for signing on. Fine and dandy. We got it.
Okay,
And
perfect.
Patrick Young, who is commenting, and especially, well, I knew, Patrick, you needed to be watching this show, does stand-up storytelling. He and his wife, and they are hilarious. So I knew that they were going to want to talk to you and see you.
I'm so excited. I love talking about that. I love talking stand-up, love talking wrestling. So thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so glad. Okay, so let's get in. Let's start from the beginning. Let's get into your story about how you got into WWE and your modeling and all of that. How short life story.
Well, it's great. I'm long-winded, so I'll say
That's
that.
okay. We got an hour.
But yeah, so I was actually not in WWE. I was in a training school. So my
Okay.
background in a nutshell is grew up in northern Minnesota, in the middle of nowhere, so cold. Family is super religious, conservative Christians, evangelicals, and I grew up in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, and it just wasn't okay to be different, right? Like they didn't know what trans was. Like I knew I was different, but I didn't know how to tell everybody I was different. So I was a coward and I didn't tell anybody for a long time. Um,
I
and,
wouldn't call
and
yourself a coward. I would call
well,
yourself socially aware.
yeah, just survival mode at the end
Yeah,
of the day.
totally.
Like sometimes I have a hard time now, but like sometimes it's just like, hey, let's keep our mouth shut, like
Oh, look at
a
the shirt
little.
I'm wearing.
I
I
love
will
it.
not be
It's
surprised
perfect.
that you can be comfortable.
It's perfect. Um,
Exactly.
I did the quickest change of all time in the back, and I just moved so you can see part of my mirror, my big fancy mirror that I shouldn't bring anywhere because it doesn't fit, but um, Uh, it looks fantastic. But what the whole thing was, wasn't comfortable, but I was looking for community, so I throw myself into something.
Oh,
So I made a choice, a conscious choice, when I was like 12 years old, and I knew at like 4 I was what I would call. Um, I felt like I was a woman, and I grew up a little boy, and that wasn't going to be okay. So I knew I was different. I didn't know about trans until I saw it on Maury Povich or Jerry Springer, which
oh
is not the way
wow.
to learn about it because there's still trauma, but
Huge.
huge trauma, and just didn't feel okay to be different. So what I ended up doing was I got really into basketball for a while. I played college basketball and for 1 year, small school. We played other Christian colleges, so if that tells you any, in Canada. So I'm pretty sure most of the colleges didn't know what a basketball was. Uh, they're like, "Is this volleyball, man?" Like, and uh, so what we did, what I got really into wrestling and was always a fan, but the internet was just starting to be popular, and you would get these, they would blur reality a lot. And I just thought it was the coolest thing because these guys would go on and hang out backstage, and they had this like internet community, and it was just like I thought it was cool, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I went to school for broadcasting, and my goodness, it was. I wrote a letter, if you can believe that, and sent it to a bunch of independent wrestling schools because The Rock, Stone Cold, like DX, like they were super hot at the time. And I was like, no, I want to be a part of this. Like this will make being trans go away. Was kind of the thought process, like, or get me not to focus on it. And so I did the thing anybody wanting to transition would do, and what felt like they were super feminine. I got on steroids and lifted weights and added testosterone into my body, and got into like this macho, like Southern community. But it was a training school. They produced a lot of people. Moved to Cincinnati, lived there for 10 years. Loved the people I met, and the fact that I wrestled with several people that went on to be in WWE, went on to do really big things. Really good friends with some of them still, and I was so worried about coming out to those guys. And when I finally came out, all of them were just like, "Yeah, ain't no thing, man." Like, uh, I can't tell you how many of them have hit on me since, but enough. And but they were
Owen
super.
said, "Oh man, a girl took me down."
Yeah.
My ass.
Well, and I would get these like text messages at like 2 in the morning when I was in Denver, and be like, "Hey, you just had this taken care of. Can we like your bottom surgery? Can we see it, or can we see your breasts?" And one guy was just like, "I can't wait to break that thing in," you
Oh
know.
my god.
I was like, number one, you can't afford me, and no, you cannot afford the places I want to eat at dinner. And number two, I know where you've been. Absolutely not. You are not on the list.
No way. Yeah, exactly. Especially, oh goodness, yeah. They think we like dick pics. I just don't even get that thinking. But yeah. So
Well,
where did
and
you go after that? How did you end up wrestling to here in LA being a comic?
yeah, it's the craziest thing. It's so I wrestled for 5 years. I probably did
Wow.
like 500 matches. So we were every between training a few days a week and lifting all the time and going all over Kentucky, Indiana, like all these different things. Like we would wrestle from like 20 people in the audience, 40 people to, I've been on shows with 500, in the audience. So, um, and it was a really cool thing. The fact that, I had runs with people that were revolutionized the wrestling business, and I'm still text me from time to time and give me tickets now that they're in WWE. It's a pretty cool thing to look back on. And then so started working corporate during my time. The last couple of years I wrestled, and so my goal was to avoid that, but I got married and I was forced to. I was highly encouraged if I wanted to stay married at the time, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I was like, okay. And so I got married and was encouraged to get the benefits. And I started with this large financial firm. Didn't know anything about finance at the time. They recruited me for customer service. So I was like, my route into corporate life was just hey, my only D in my life was college. What I got in finance in college, and it just wasn't. Like I never saw myself staying in corporate life for that long. But when I decided to transition, I wanted to move because it's so visual when you're like, I knew I wasn't fluid. I knew I wasn't they, them. I knew um, that I was going to transition. I was a trans woman. And so the funny story is I actually thought of myself, I didn't see myself staying in corporate. I thought I was going to be a webcam girl. And
Really?
because that was the logical choice. Right. And
What's
I,
that website? The uh, where the girls go and get money?
oh yeah, there are so many now.
Yeah. Oh, OnlyFans. That's what I was
OnlyFans,
thinking.
yes.
OnlyFans.
Um,
Yeah.
so there wasn't an OnlyFans at that time, but
Yeah.
you could do like all this webcam work. Anybody could sign up for it,
Yeah.
and so they would route you through like a million different porn sites or whatever it is, and so I had a secret Facebook at the time, like a female Facebook, which now is just my regular Facebook.
Oh,
Same name, didn't change it, or like if I knew what I wanted to be called, Denise
yeah.
Winkelman. So uh, I was starting hormones in 2012, and I had to get a letter from a therapist. And the therapist at the time was this older lady, and she had to give me a letter, and she had to like get a doctor referral. And there was only one doctor in the area at the time that did it, would prescribe hormones. So um, she would ask me like what my plan was and how I saw myself making money. And um, at the time, all the pretty friends I had on Facebook who were trans or, like would present female, uh, they were all in the sex industry of some sort
Mm.
and porn. I had a girl trying to get me to go to Amsterdam and be a red light girl, all kinds of crazy stuff. And my non-pretty friends, they were like advocates and they were very well spoken, but they all like had real jobs. And I was like, well, I think I'm pretty, so I'm gonna do that, the other thing. And so
Right?
yeah, so my business plan was and I had a business plan in my mind. I actually presented this to my therapist. So tell me what you think.
Okay.
Was number one was inventory. So I decided to buy all these slutty costumes the day after Halloween because I could afford them, um,
On a budget.
and then you just sign up, right? You just sign up for it, and you kind of go. And but my plan was to do it enough to transition, and then almost like you would use an OnlyFans for. I wasn't expecting to get rich, but I thought I could eventually turn it into like a 8 hour a day thing or something. And I tried it. I actually tried it for 1.5 hours, um, and
Okay.
so they would come in. Well, so I present this plan to my therapist, and she was like, and she's this old lady. She was like, the way you speak, it really sounds like you could accomplish that. Like, I think you should do it. And in my mind as a comedian, I'm like, you're a terrible therapist. You should probably do something else. Like, you should be telling us not to do that.
Right?
And so she uh, talked me into it essentially and gave me the validation. So I did it. I was still working corporate at the time, and so then I tried it, and they would route you through all these sites and crap like that. And she said, uh, well, anyway, like I got a few hits, and the game was you had to keep them on more than like 5 minutes, or maybe it was 2 minutes at the time. Like they had to stay in your room to get charged because they got 2 minutes for free. And everything was like dropping like trans slurs, like tranny, and like the way these people treated you. And I took about, I had very few clients the first hour, kind of thing, and it was just the worst experience I've ever had. So after I logged off and took off my slutty costume, of whatever it was, slutty princess or slutty NASCAR racer, whatever it is. I um, I I decided, I was like, well, maybe I'll give this work thing a chance and see what they say. So I talked to my boss, and I ended up applying for a job in Denver. We were opening a new site at the time, and I moved to Denver in 2013. Worked 1 week as male, uh, took a week off, and then started working as female, and in this large company. And so that helped with transition, having a job. They treated me well. I got a call from a vice president of something, something, and I never talked to vice presidents at the time. And they were, everybody has a title, and I never heard of this person, but I was driving through Kansas in the middle of nowhere, and I took the call, and she was like, no, 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 we got to talk. I'm your like liaison between yourselves and the leader. And we've never had somebody transition before. So we want to make sure we do it right. And,
Wow, cool.
so it was cool. It was a cool experience, but I felt a lot of pressure in the sense that I felt like I had to do everything right
Oh, you were
because,
the poster child trans.
yes, I was the
Yeah,
token trans
yeah,
transitioning. But it was cool. Like I helped the company like get benefits for trans people, for trans surgeries, and I always felt like no matter what happened or happens, like I feel like I'm going to leave the company better. And
fantastic.
that was the goal, and not to have to do slutty webcam stuff unless I want to.
My slutty webcam stuff.
Yes, I mean everybody's should have released their inner slut. We are pro
Right?
slut. I always call myself a hussy because in my mind it's nicer than calling everybody a slut. But I'm like I am very pro hussy. Everything about
Yeah.
me is pro hussy.
Well, and in your stand-up show, when you called it, "Who are my hussies?" I was the first one up.
Yes,
Right here.
I always go like this when I ask.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Um, well, and I love it because I call my fans hussies. I call myself a hussy. I say things like, "Oh, I'm gonna hussy myself up today," or "I'm gonna add a little extra huss to stuff." So it works in so many ways. And then I also say team hussy.
There you
So
go.
in a way, it's like, oh yeah, it's team hussy. So my fans are behind me, but it's also, yes, 3 cheers for hussies. And but so it's cool in that sense. It's very cool. And we do this thing like on like some of the t-shirts that say join the movement in like a ransom note font. And in my mind, that's kind of like the cool thing, like bringing it back to wrestling, like the NWO or like some of these really cool groups, like the fans kind of want to be a part of, and also like I think it's cool. So all about that. So very pro hussy at the end of
Well,
the
and anything that gives a finger to the patriarchy, I'm for.
yeah.
So, without the patriarchy, hussies wouldn't even, be a thing. So own it. I'm a boss bitch. I own it.
There you
So anytime we can, flip off
go.
the patriarchy and do so, I'm all for it.
Yes, no, I am all about that. And it does really well when I bring shirts that say Team Hussy to like gay shows because all the lesbian ladies and the bi ladies are like, no, I want one of those. Got to advertise a little bit. So,
So, what gave you the courage to do stand up?
well, so what happened was, and this leads into modeling. was I decided to wrestle again. I was looking for a creative outlook, so I just so 8 years away. I stopped wrestling in 2008, and then what I decided to do was go to this place in Denver, which had a different style. Wrestling wasn't the training facility. I think overall in Colorado at the time, they would get a lot of MMA guys, but they weren't really known for producing a lot of like wrestlers. So I signed up with this place, gave it a shot, and was really a good talker. And they started working with like a online TV streaming service, and they brought in a guy who was in Colorado who used to write for WWE, Vince Russo. And Vince Russo, for anybody who knows wrestling, is like a polarizing figure because he takes a ton of credit for everything, like The Rock and Stone Cold, like their personas, their cool personas. He wrote during the Attitude Era, which was like the edgy, cool era in WWE. But he took a ton of credit, and I think he wasn't giving Vince McMahon a lot of credit at the end of the day. So in the years that followed, he would get hired at certain places. So, and then he would have a run, he would get mad about something. And in a lot of ways, he would just regenerate a lot of ideas for people. So he saw me being tall, and I was taller than the rest of the girls. And I looked strong because I'm 5'11", and they're, like 5'5" or whatever. So he wanted me to be China. And I'm not strong like China. I did not want to do a China thing. I wanted to talk and be funny. And he told me I wasn't pretty. He was like, I don't see you as pretty. And I was like, okay. So what I decided to do was when I stepped away from wrestling, I talked to some of my girls from wrestling who do a lot of fitness shoots, and I started worked with some really good photographers in Colorado for fitness shoots, and was hired to do a number of like fitness modeling and stuff. And my whole goal was to tell the guy to f off,
That's
so
called him a dick.
yeah. But yes, exactly. Like, if I were going to be nicer, like in my secret code, I would call him a douche nozzle.
There you go.
A denozzler, but yeah, was not a fan. And he very one-dimensional, very nearsighted, where it's like, hey, let's take a look at somebody, and 10 seconds in, this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to be stuck with.
Thinking
So
with his smaller brain.
exactly right. Like very very one-dimensional, very, and I think overall wrestling's evolved a lot since then, but he didn't really want to do anything except what he wanted to do at the end of the day. So did the fitness modeling. Uh, Let me ask, how clean do I have to be? Like, am I allowed to?
No, this is an adult show. Yeah, I
Okay,
would have gone over all this stuff with you, but yeah, cursing's allowed, obviously, since I've been cursing this entire time, literally since from the start of the show.
this is what.
You're free to go. You go right ahead. And in fact, Patrick's kind of complaining that you haven't even inferred any hussiness yet. So,
Yes. Well,
yeah, you've
you'll
got
there's
31 minutes left, Patrick. Hold on.
there is more to come. You are always welcome, Patrick, to join Team Hussy. And when
Sarah
I
first, or his wife first.
oh, his wife first, yeah, it's an
Yes,
initiation process. We
Sarah's
let
already in there with us. So yeah.
Yes, it's a very fluid type of lifestyle, the Hussy lifestyle.
Yeah.
But no, so I started fitness modeling, and I remember I did the concert venue, Red Rocks, very pretty area up in Denver, legendary
Yeah.
venue, and outdoors, like very pretty. And but the photographer, I never met the guy, but he was very well known, and he had me go off the beaten path essentially, and by this stream. And you can look on my Insta and you can see some of these photos, but it's like me in like a bikini and like underwear, and I'm just sitting there, like literally changing as hikers are walking by. And I'm like, well, they're getting shot. Like they're getting a show. Here we go. But he was very complimentary. It was a lot of fun. And what I decided to do, I've always been told I could be a stand-up, but I've also been very quiet. So before I transitioned, I was very soft-spoken. I was very not sure of myself, so to speak. And
Really?
um,
Even after wrestling, you weren't? Because I would
so,
think that would give you a bunch of self-esteem.
so in a way, I always was like quiet with ideas because those guys would jump all over you, kind of thing, and they've had that like ego kind of
That
stuff.
makes sense.
But I was always a good talker. One of my friends who's very well known, Carl Anderson from WWE and the Bullet Club and part of Anderson and Gallows, like he always used to introduce me to his friends as the best promo he's ever watched. And because I'd be quiet, like unsure of myself, and I was playing this character, a mad scientist kind of character who was like crazy and unbalanced and very intense. And I didn't relate to that character at all, but I found ways to like, the insecurity, the anger that I had inside, I would let that come out. And so I could just talk and like, use that intensity essentially. So I would say really intense things in funny ways, like, mad scientists, like I whipped a potion up in my garage and and yes, so and so I'm gonna feed it to you and I'm gonna turn you into a billy goat. And miss oh wait, I'm looking at your photo and I realize you've already been cloned with a goat. We'll have to come up with something better.
Ouch. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
stuff like that. And I would do that stuff. And for me, it was kind of fun, but it led into other stuff. I blinded a guy with potion was a big thing. And then we did like this tag team street fight for the belts in their hometown with like 250 people there. And it was like our first like kind of run on the main shows after training. So it was kind of fun. And um, with comedy, I felt like, hey, I love comedy. I've always thought, well, I can't do that. And but everybody always told me I should be a comic, and it's like, no, I can talk. Why wouldn't I do this? I just have to figure out like the cadence and stuff like that. So first set I ever did was so trans community, we take care of our own. I told somebody at the nonprofit center I work for, hey, I'm thinking of doing stand up. So they gave me 8 minutes on their big fundraiser in front of 300 people. I'd never done stand up, and I got enough big laughs, and I was nervous. I was shaking the mic, but where I was like, no, this is what I want to do. This is it. And like a year and a half later, I moved to Los Angeles. Maybe 2 years later, I moved to Los Angeles, and right before the pandemic started. So 2 weeks before the pandemic started, and kind of went from there. So it's been a wild ride, but that's my life and journey in kind of a nutshell. It's basically this is what happens when ADHD and transgender takes over.
Well, as
But
soon as you said that you were angry and had trauma, I'm like, comedian is perfect. That's exactly what comedians need, right? I mean, that's what they all say. If it wasn't for this trauma, I mean, I think I even got my sense of humor because of the trauma. You got to laugh. If you don't laugh at things, you're going to completely fall apart.
you gotta laugh, and so I always try to be like not just trauma, but like pain plus time equals comedy, right? Like that's the old saying. And I find everybody so unique, so it's like, why not talk about yourself? Why not talk about some of this and try to make it funny? And one of the biggest compliments I get is from parents or people with a trans person in their family, and they're trying to come to terms with it, and they're like, not only are you hilarious, but it helped me. It helped me understand where they were coming from.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the first shows that you and I went to see other comics, I believe, we were walking out and I was just kind of overwhelmed at how delicate comedians need to be these days. There is no picking on other people. There is no, everything that has been used in comics bags for decades is no longer appropriate or correct, or and can be viewed as mean. And during I mean, I'm watching these shows, I'm watching you, and to be funny in that environment and to get your whole stage presence and get all that done in the midst of watch what you say, um, is really difficult. And I really think this hussy thing is just so perfect. I mean, your stand up focuses on you, focuses on the comedy of life, which I just absolutely love. But you found a way to stick the needle through or stick the thread through the needle without you're offensive, but you're not offensive. If that makes sense. You're offensive
Well,
in the best way.
well, and I really appreciate it. It's that's kind of my goal. When I was wrestling, one of my buddies, he turned from good guy to bad guy, and this was Southern style wrestling for the most part. So in Ohio, you had to be athletic based, and you would do promos like it was a big event, like a big show. In Kentucky, they wanted to yell at the bad guys. So when you were a bad guy, they wanted you to walk out, start talking shit,
Mm,
and and then they wanted to yell at you, and they wanted you to yell from the ring and tell them to shut up, and shut up, you fat
wow.
red, stuff like that. And um, so one of my friends, and you get to know some of the loyal fans, and so one of my friends, he turned from good guy to bad guy, and he kept calling everybody fat rednecks, and he focused in on one bigger lady in the crowd who came to a lot of shows, and was like, listen, you're fat, you're ugly, and da da da. And he kind of picked on her. And after the show, she was really shook up.
Yeah,
And Chuck came over and talked to her and was like, and she said, listen, man, I know I'm fat. I come here not to be reminded of it. I come here to have an escape where I can yell at the fellas, and so he took it to heart. And
good.
from that time on, 20 years, I've never once seen him like be mean to a fan. Like specifically, like he'll pick on, like everybody in general. But if he picks on someone, um, he always slips on a banana peel. Like right after
That's the
that,
way it should be. Yeah.
so he'd be like, "Shut up, you fat rednecks," and then like immediately a trip on the rope, or or turn around and the good guy's waiting there and be like, "Ah!" and give a big
Punch
scream.
up, not down.
Yeah, I know. It's like if you're, and that was one thing I was taught. Like if you're gonna punch down at people, like make sure that you punch down harder on yourself.
Yeah.
I've always remembered that. And when I think of what I want to be on stage, yes, I want to go through all these different emotions and experiences, and hopefully people take from it what they will, and they can feel it or feel empathetic, or, hopefully they just find it funny. But if they need to escape reality, if they're, maybe closeted and they haven't come out, and anything like that, it's like more than anything, I don't want to have them feel bad going to a comedy show. I want them to feel good. And so I always try to remind myself of that. But I also feel like with people who are, oh, it's woke culture, I can't say anything and be funny and da da da. It's like, you can say whatever you want. You just have to be able to live with the consequences.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you and the thing is nobody's been canceled really for what they've said. The if they've
Unless
been
it was deserved.
unless it was deserved. Like the only one I can really think of off the top of my head is Michael Richards from Seinfeld.
Yeah,
Um, but he got canceled, way back in the day, and he never tried to come back. He just took
yeah,
the money and stepped away. If he would have, waited 10 years and came back and, like apologized and just been cool, it would have been fine. Like it wouldn't have kept him from jobs, like the stuff he said,
yeah.
if he would have been truly remorseful. But so I think with the comedians now, yeah, there is some of that. Like people get upset with them at line. They're like, "Ooh, I'm going to get canceled. I'm going to get canceled." And I read an article from somebody in publications here. And if you can't tell, we're on the same block, the same motorcycle. Like,
Did you just hear
yes,
it?
yes. I was like, that just
I
crossed
told
my.
him you were my neighbor before you came on. So yeah, it's okay. That's hilarious.
But at the end of the day, it was like, um, I don't feel you can't say anything. I just feel like it's a corporate environment. You might get called into the naughty office and have to, say something about it or apologize. And that's okay if
Yeah.
you have to do that as long as you're willing to learn. But I also think after Trump won in 2016, when Chappelle came out with the trans stuff in his special, and then kind of leaned into it with his next special, I think it was purposely done specifically to try to get buzz about his special because he was getting paid a lot
Yeah.
of money from
But
from
doesn't that
Netflix.
suck using the trans community as the way to do that?
Oh, I hate it. I hate
Okay.
it, and
Okay, good.
I'm not defending him at all. But what I'm saying is, I think it was done as a marketing strategy. And then after that, the other comedians, like I saw a thing with Whitney Cummings on stage where she told a joke. It wasn't even that offensive. And she kept asking, "Am I going to get canceled now?" And she was like excited, like trying to get people to cancel her. So I think more than anything, it's a wrestling thing too. Controversy creates cash.
Oh
So
man, I can't wait for my book to get banned in Florida.
mhm,
I get it.
there you go.
As soon as Florida finds out about my book, it's going to be at the top of the list to get banned. I get
Exactly.
that, but I don't think society accepts cruelty anymore.
Mhm.
And like the only thing that comes to mind is, and I was going to say Sanford and Sons, and that's not even the right one. Is those were the days
Was it
that
all in the
all in the
family?
family. Yes, I mean
Right.
that could never air now. Uh,
Yeah.
because of the language, because of the bigotry, and I also respect comedians like yourself more when you do the hard work. When you do it, when you're not just trying to be funny by putting other people down. That is it. It just earns so much respect from me. I mean, we've seen some crazy shows in the improv and
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like that. It's like wow. And very few things offend me, especially at a comedy show.
Mhm.
But I really appreciate people trying to not take the cheap shots anymore.
Yeah, and I think why to me it's like why go into it like it's a war? Like why attack people? Like there's no reason to attack. Now I do play with straight people. Like I tease
I
them
resemble that remark.
in a fun way. I mean, we'll use the term straight loosely. It's a
Okay.
spectrum. It's Hollywood,
Don't
like
judge me.
yes. um, but I just feel like if we do it playful and we do it in a fun place, like it allows you to get away with a lot more. And not that it's like, yeah, I want to be able to say whatever I want, but I get where people who have been bullied and, like, uh, are like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that, kind of thing. So it's like you're never going to appeal to everybody because there's some people that want you to do that and want you to be purposely offensive. I'm always just like, I would much rather be creative.
Yeah, some people are looking to be offended, and that's just their whole identity. We're never going to make them laugh if they can't laugh at themselves. I mean,
But
I think I'm hilarious. I constantly laugh at myself. I laugh at other people too.
no, it's important. It's important to remember, like, hey, I'm not perfect. I can't do everything, and so, but I find that important, and I'm always like, if you can be playful, if you can make people feel better about themselves, but still be creative. There some of the roast stuff that have gotten really popular. I love roast. I've watched a ton on Comedy Central recently, and I've done it a few times. Like, the thing I loved about wrestling was being able to talk shit to your best buds, and
True.
say really mean stuff and throw some inside stuff in, and the fans are like, "Ooh, what was that about?" Kind of thing. And I love that, but I love creativity, and I think with the roasts as popular as they are, sometimes that gets diluted, and then you have to bring that in. If you're a roast comic, you have to bring that into your set. Like, I've seen, there's this guy Tony Hinchcliffe who has a really popular podcast, but he got canceled for being extremely racial and bringing up an Asian community comedian, and doing it very, and basically talking shit about Asian people, like, right after that. And so he got canceled for a minute, and then he kind of leaned into it, and his fan base loves it. But I'm just like, yeah, I can't listen to an hour of that, maybe a few minutes, and I just check out at that point.
Yeah, I just like yourself. I think good comics rise above belittling others. I mean, especially generically. I love Taylor Tomlinson. She totally belittles the evangelical movement. Love
Yes.
it. But it's not individuals. It's not, evangelicalism is a choice. We are not born into, we can't choose our ethnicity. We can't choose our sex per se. We are born into this image. And then for someone to put that down, that's where I go, you probably shouldn't. Do better, people,
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, and I'm always like, I see so much of the same comedy from the same thread, here locally, because
Yeah.
there are so many comedians. So you'll get people not that good, just starting out, and they're trying to mimic what other people are doing.
Mhm.
So I can always tell, like, if I go to like a show with newer people on it, like, oh, that person's trying to be Jeselnik, that person's trying to be Bill Burr, that person's
Okay.
trying to be Chappelle or Hinchcliffe, because they have all this trans material, and I'm like, good for you, buddy. Like, good for you. I'm gonna rip on you as soon as I get up on stage. Um, but and I tend to do okay in those situations. But I'm just like, be creative. Like,
Exactly.
if you're gonna do it, either come from a place of realness or be creative. Like, don't.
Exactly. Do better. Even if it's making, even if it's funny, do better.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree. Like, I mean, like I get that we get offended about way too much, and now with social media we see everything.
Yeah.
If you want to search for it, but at the end of the day, it's like, if I've worked a corporate job for a long time, I've said stuff that I should get in trouble for, like, not um, mostly ripping on straight dudes, but they're very sensitive. They cry a lot, and they're just like, if somebody
Snowflakes?
yeah, they're these big, tough, masculine dudes, and they're all like buddy buddy, and I see them like holding hands and singing "Kumbaya" and talking about how the mean trans woman made them cry that day,
There
but
you go.
it's
Well, see, I
fine.
mean, I will never, and I'm not even going to tell the whole skit because I will never get it burned out of my brain. But that one guy who demonstrated his gay sex and his insides exploding from the chili festival,
Oh,
I'll never forget that. I wasn't offended. I was disgusted. I was so disgusted that that wouldn't even been a part of a comedy thing. But yeah, I guess he was trying to get creative.
Couldn't even imagine. Yeah, and I think people just write, too much, and it's also one of those things. Like whenever I'm doing too much and around too many toxic people in this business, I'm like, okay, I need to step back a little bit, and I need to do less of that stuff and focus more on my career and
There you go.
other
Yeah.
things. But Patrick asked, "What about my feelings?" So,
Fuck your feelings, Patrick.
well, everybody's feelings matter, Patrick, just not here.
Yeah. I love Patrick. He knows how much I love him, and I'm sure he and Sarah's probably like, "Yeah, fuck your feelings, Patrick." Love them. I can't wait to see you guys next week at the Goose. Yeah, they're hilarious.
Well,
Absolutely hilarious. I would love to get the three of you telling stories.
well, I love that, and I will give them a ribbon, like uh, here, good number one straight people.
There you
Well,
go, a white straight guy ribbon. I
yeah,
like that. I like that.
yeah, it'll be your sorry,
I
yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
it'll be your path to pride. You get to get
There
into the
you
cool
go.
countries, like you, you can walk in
So
the parade just one time.
exactly. Calm down, Patrick. It's okay.
You can use a you can I'm giving the ribbon allows you to use one trans slur just around me in a box room in front of nobody, and it's a pass. No, I'm kidding.
So you lose the ribbon, in other words.
Yes, yes, yeah. You get it taken away, and then you're number two fan, and that doesn't get you anything.
Yeah, yeah, he would never. He nor Sarah would would ever. But yeah, they're the couple that I just absolutely adore. They're wonderful.
Perfect. That
So what what kind of advice would you? We're almost at the top of the hour. So what kind of advice would you offer for just people who are going through a hard time? You've been through it. You've been bullied, and now you're on stage making jokes. So, what kind of inspiration can you give people who are just trying to make it through this crazy world?
Yeah, and I think transitioning was the hardest thing I've ever done. I remember going through multiple surgeries to be the person I felt like I should be, and to make everything kind of work, and it was super stressful. And I've had so many people like be like, "Well, you had it so easy. This has went so well for you," and I'm like, "This was the hardest thing I've ever done," and so my advice would, I say it in the special, be yourself. Like find out who you are, figure out who that is, and as long as you're not hurting anyone, as long as it's not illegal in California, other places it doesn't matter. If it being trans and you know, as long as you're not hurting anyone, as long as you're not doing something horrific that's affecting others, or like be yourself,
Exactly.
um,
Authenticity.
and fight for it. I remember like having I knew I was going to transition. I knew I was moving. I had a time frame from Cincinnati to Denver, and I remember going out shopping and like because I was told, well, you never present, so you have to start thinking of this as you're going to live this life. And I knew in my mind that that was okay. Like I didn't need to. That wasn't going to be a thing. I knew it wasn't going to affect me once I transitioned. I hated the awkwardness of having to take everything off and feeling like I was just playing dress up. And so I went shopping one day, and before I left the house, I had a panic attack. And I've never had a panic attack, but I was just like, this. I literally had to tell myself, this doesn't make you a bad person, because it was so ingrained in me I was going to hell, or I was a horrible person if you were not living God's way. And
But you
so,
are living God's way.
but overcoming that,
Authenticity is God's way.
well, and so like once I got to that point, and I was just like, I'm gonna be open, I'm gonna be real, and I'm gonna talk about, like this stuff that has affected me. Um, I do believe it gets better. We live overall in a better time than we did, 10, 15 years ago, where I was worried at all times, especially when I did stuff in Cincinnati, and because it was more conservative. Like I knew people that were starting to transition, and they were raped by a friend, and I know that still happens. I was very fortunate in that that didn't happen, but I knew many women that had violence against them, they because of the jobs that they had to work. So, in the sense that I feel very fortunate, I was fortunate enough where I've always been able to kind of have a plan around stuff when I've made big moves, where I've moved three times in my life, three times in my life across country. I was just making sure, was it
Yeah,
four?
I count 'em.
But across country, and have made big events happen. It's having a plan within reason, with the knowledge, do research, and then kind of figure out how that's going to work and how you can get to that point. I think honestly, like finding a good job in reality is very important. Corporate, even though I make fun of it, having a corporate gig with benefits and, kind of that standard where they were going to protect me within reason, where they
Yeah,
shielded me from a lot. I think that helped a ton.
totally. Having that support is everything.
And getting some of the negative voices out of your ear. I lost wrestlers I knew, who weren't on board with me being trans. One of the people who was my best friend growing up, I told him I was trans, and I had been away for a while, and he said, I don't believe in that. That was the last time we ever spoke. And he died like a year and a half ago, and we haven't spoken since. And so I've lost people in my life, but, from the sense, and I knew every time I went out, even in Denver, where it was so much cooler, I didn't get misgendered. My goal was with surgeries and stuff if I'm going to get hassled for a good reason, like not be a videotape on the news where trans women got attacked in a bathroom at McDonald's or something. And I wanted to be able to like go to the gym without a problem. I wanted, and so from that sense, I was able to accomplish all of that. It's not, I forget that I'm trans because it's been 10 years since I transitioned. And, it's affected a lot of pieces of my life, but if I weren't talking about it on stage, I would never talk about it. And so I remember after like one of the surgeries, one of my friends, uh, uh, probably somebody I offended quite a bit because he was in that kumbaya circle at certain times, holding hands with all the straight dudes, and um, but he said, I've known you only as Denise, but I'm in the 3 years and after the surgery, when you came back and I saw you just 10 seconds, he's like, I've never seen you that comfortable in your skin.
I love that. We're almost out of time, but Patrick wants to know if you've had any wonderful relationships.
Not really.
I haven't either, so there we go.
I've God, relationships. Well, it took me a long time to figure out kind of that I was into women. I was always curious with guys. I dated guys. So before I transitioned, there was always this curiosity, but the girls I was with, it was like I was very passive in the relationship. And, for a big masculine dude. And they wanted somebody who was like masculine. And I was like, well, like if I was married for, I was with her for 6 years, longest relationship I've ever been with. and almost everything was kind of me figuring out I was trans. And, you know, she would tell you I lied about being trans. I would tell you that I had no idea until she made me go to therapy. And all of a sudden, I had this armor around me and I had a hole poke in the armor and everything came out. And once it all came out, I couldn't get it back in. And so I dated guys for a couple of years. Definitely not my thing. Not at all. So I'm one of the lucky women who have dated guys and said, nope, not for me. And I'm sure they thank me for that at the end. But but I want to find, and with stand up and a day job and all that stuff, it takes away a lot of my time. And then I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So the thing I don't put on the front burner is relationships. And I do want to get to that point. I want like a special relationship. But if you know anybody, beautiful lady who would like to join Team Hussy, and I am more than welcome. Please don't send me pictures of you in drag. I will not participate.
Okay, well, we are definitely at the top of the hour. Denise, I love you so much. Thank you for
I love
coming
you too.
on.
Thank you so much.
Let me see. I have banners here. Okay, so do we have a release date for Bougie on a Budget yet?
No, so we filmed it in March, end of March. I was like, because the date moved once or twice,
Yeah.
and really excited with everything. We're dropping a trailer soon. I was just in a meeting. One of the reasons I'm late is I was just in a meeting about where that process is. So I'm getting the final copy here soon, and we're shopping it. And so no release date. I would expect it to be late this year,
Okay.
early next year. But you can always sign up to be a Hussy or join Team Hussy at my website, Denise Winkelman Comedy, and we'll have plenty of updates.
And for everybody out there, I hope to be getting to sharing her links and all of this stuff very soon. I'm so far behind. I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Denise, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It was absolutely great. Thank you so much. And I want to say with you here that with very few exceptions, society tells people they shouldn't be who they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I got it my entire life. Be quiet. Be more submissive. All of these things, and that's just ain't me. So I love that you flipped the people off and say, "I'm going to be authentic, just like me." And I think that's why we're friends.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I totally agree. And the weirdest thing is I'm very real on stage, and so many comedians aren't. And I've always been at a place, and I've fought with people in the industry over this, just being like, hey, listen, this is me. I can't go back in the closet now.
Good for you. Cheers to that. And Patrick says cheers also. I'm going to send you backstage and close the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, another great show. Thanks for watching and your input. I loved Patrick being on this so much. I knew that he was going to like this show. Don't forget to check out my book. And I did something really cool. So if you go to my website, sherrypalace.com, and buy a signed copy, you'll get it in this really cool box. Look, it's a shipping box, and it looks like my book. They went out this week for the first time. It was a whole stack that I took to the post office. So go to my website, sherrypalace.com. There it is, and check it out. Look for Denise's show to be coming out, and I'll be posting and sharing it too. And have a great week. I will see you guys next Friday. So 11 days, something like that. I would normally wish you a happy 4th of July, but since we lost our independence this week, I don't think there really should be one. But anyway, get my book. Can't wait to hear your thoughts on my book. And if you like the show, share it, subscribe. Thanks again for watching, all of that good stuff. I will see you from the goose. And as always, walk in love. Mwah! See you next week.